Hi, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where today's video is going to be following on from the video that I did just the other day, talking about how to solve these sheep and wolf slitherlinks. Now, one of the things that I want to focus on when we go through the solve today is how little actually you have to use the numbers in the grid. The colouring is so important. Working out which parts of the grid are inside and which parts of the grid are outside the loop is surprisingly easy once you know what to look for. So where could we look here, for example? Well, the most obvious square is this 0. This 0, therefore, there are no loop parts along its edges, so it must have the same colour as the adjacent squares, and because we know that these squares here are outside the loop, x's are wolves in this this representation of the puzzle, we can fill in this square, and actually we can fill in this square and this square. All of that is forced simply by this 0 being adjacent to purple squares. Now let's fill in the sheep with a different colour. Let's fill in sheep with green. That will allow us to see some other things that are going on. Now I guess if we look at the 3, for example, here, we know that 3 of the edges of the 3 will obviously be taken up with line segments. So is it possible that both this segment and this segment don't contain a line? Clearly that's not possible. So there must be a line segment in at least one of these positions, and that means that it cannot have the same colour as the purple squares. It must be green as well. So let's put that in. That's going to have to be green, and then we can start to just annotate some of the loop here along these edges. So I think that's as far as we can go. Obviously, as the loop is moving like this, that actually completes the 3. And here we have an opportunity. This 3 has got to escape, so this must be green. Let's fill that in, like so. And where does this line go here? Well, it clearly comes down. It can't divide the 3 up. So again, we get to put in more. This must come this way. The other thing that I'm going to say now, which is self-evidently obvious, and you may say, well, why are you saying that? It's so obvious. But it's also sort of important. Wherever you put a loop line in this puzzle, it must divide a green square from a purple square. And even that simple observation can lead to some interesting things. Let me just complete the line there. That line disappeared when I put that in. This square must also be purple. We can't isolate a loop. Remember, we're trying to create a single closed loop where each dot in the grid is only visited by the loop once, if at all. So a single point cannot be visited by the loop twice. And we end up, I think, now with this situation. Now I'm just also going to make the standard slitherlink. When you have 3s on a diagonal like this, you always are able to write in these lines like this. And again, this is incredibly powerful now, because we now know that this square and this square must have the same polarity, if you like, and they're connected to this purple square. And we have to avoid checkerboard patterns. That's probably the best way of describing it. So it's not possible. How should I show this? If I show this with a green here and a green here, and then this one, obviously, because it's divided by a line, we've said this one therefore would have to be purple. This representation here is not possible, because if we think about how the loop would have to move, it would come round here and round here, and this this dot where the cursor is now has been visited by the loop twice, and that is not permitted. So what we can do is we can unwind that. That's not going to be the case. Both of these squares must be purple, this one and this one. This square is divided from this purple square by a line, therefore this square must be green, like that. And I'll just complete the loop again, which for some reason gets deleted. Can then draw in this line. There we go. Now this one is interesting. Again, I can do this one without thinking about the Slitherlink line, the loop line. Let's think about if this line, this square here, can be green. If it's green, I will have to draw a line here and a line here, because we know the loop will then have to come down both these sides to divide it. So it can't be green because it's got a 1 in it. So it must be this colour, and that allows us to know we need to draw a line here to delineate a square that's inside the loop from a square that's outside the loop. Now this one is completed, so we cannot have a square there. So where can this line now go? It must go downwards, which means that this square again is purple, like that. Oh, and our line disappeared. Now if we look at this now, again we've got to avoid checkerboard patterns, so we can't make this square and this square green. Both of these squares must be purple. This square is green, and therefore you can see the way that the loop is going to move. It's going to come round like this, which means this will also be purple, and this must be purple as well. Again, we need to avoid the checkerboard. So oops, I think I just switched that to green, didn't mean to do that. Oops, can't click. So we end up with this pattern, and you can see by basic Slitherlink rules as well, this 2 square here, because this square cannot, neither of these line segments can complete because that would break the loop that's going around the 3, we actually get to write in 2 Slitherlink lines like that. But notice how little we've actually had to use the Slitherlink rules. We used it with the 3 at the top here and with this 2, but mainly we're working on colours and avoiding checkerboard patterns. And that's I think that's one of the interesting things about this version, if you like, of the Slitherlink genre. So now, oops, I didn't mean to do that. That's actually, let me just unwind that because that's going to be confusing. Sorry about that. I want to put greens in there, and now I want to draw lines like this. And again, if we think about this 1 square now, what happens if it's green? If it's green, I would need to draw a line here and a line here, and that would break. I would then have two line segments going around a 1 square. So this cannot be green. This must be purple. And then, of course, I get to extend my Slitherlink line again that way. And let's complete the line up there. And I think that's where we can now look for our next trick. So let's look at the 1. This side of the 1 can't be filled because we've already filled in the 1, and this line here can't break up a green segment, so it's going to have to continue its journey this way, which means that this green square has a different polarity from this square, which means this square must be purple. And that is a very important step in solving this puzzle, because now I've actually disconnected this green area from this green area. So we're always going to be having to think now, how are we going to get this green area to connect with its friends? We can't make the simple jump down this way. And again, looking at this 1, we know 3 sides of this 1 definitely don't contain line segments because they join to the same coloured squares. So this square must be green. And then we can draw in the line segment that's associated with the delineation of the colours like that. And let's continue with our logic with ones. Can this one be green? If it's green, there's going to be a line segment here to delineate, this purple square from the green square, and there'll have to be one here, and again we'll break the one. So even though you might at first blush not know how the lines extend, using the colours we actually are able to make a deduction. And again, now it's starting to get very, so now this green square is going to have to come out and down, and we can think about a beautiful piece of logic that I've seen with this puzzle. Let's have a look at this one square in the top. Now it should be very clear that the loop cannot come round these two edges like that. That's impossible because it will use two squares or two line segments in a one. So we know either there'll be a line here or there'll be a line here. There can't be both, but there will be one. Now, bearing in mind what we've said before, which is that when we have a line segment, one side of it will be one colour and one side of it will be another. Let's think about that in the context of this green area. Is it possible this green area connects to this green area by coming across the top of the grid? And it should be clear it's not possible because one of these squares will be purple, and therefore the only way this green area connects to this green area is going to have to be by coming down the grid. Beautiful, beautiful puzzle setting. Oops. So those lines there are forced. Now we don't at this point know whether the way this green area will connect is to pop in here and go down, or whether it's going to come right round the outside of the grid. But we do know all of this is forced. Now this one square now, this line here, in order to get this one into the loop, there must be a line here. So this one must be connected to friends, like that. That's forced. And now let's think about what the next step might be. Let's do our trick with the one again. Can this one be green? No. If it's green, this side and this side will have to have line segments breaking it. So this is purple. And now let's have a think about this 3 square. How can this be arranged? And in particular, is it possible that this 3 square is not green? If it's not green, there would have to be no line segment there because it's not inside the loop, and we'd have to have line segments going like this. But then the problem with this is green, and this is not green, and we've got a problem now because we've got a checkerboard pattern where this line segment here, or that dot on the grid, will be touched by 2 parts of the loop, this part and this part. So this is not a possible arrangement, which means that this square must be green. So let's fill that in and think about what that might mean. I think, yeah, that's right. So can this come round, oops, let's just change the font. Can this ever come round like this? Would that be possible? And that's not going to work, because then it's going to run in over here. One of these cells is purple and this will be isolated. So it's never possible for this line segment here to be open. This is definitely closed. And we have to just work out which one of these is likely. Now, given that this line is forced, this must be purple, obviously. Like that. And as we know that one of these 2 lines is purple, oops, it's not possible that any of these squares are green, because if any of them are green, that green will be isolated. So let's fill in all of these squares must be purple, and again this cannot be green. That's going to isolate this square. So now obviously this square cannot be green because that will cause 3 of its edges to have to be inside the loop. It's only got 1. So this, that square, that line is going to be the line that's associated with this one. So this one is purple, and now we get to make a huge amount of progress because we now know that the loop moves like this, and we can do a lot of green shading. So green, 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 green. Remember, this green area has to somehow attach over here. So it's going to have to come all the way to there. Now we don't know now whether it branches upwards or goes round the side, but this is a massive amount of progress, and you'll see why, because when we add the actual line segments in, how do we complete this 2, given that we've got 1 here, the only way is going to be there. So this comes round here. Now this 1 has already got a line segment at the bottom in order to make sure it's inside the loop, so that this must now go upwards, like that. So this is now inside the loop, this is green, and we must avoid a checkerboard pattern. So this square is purple. There. Now look what this is going to do now with the extension of this line must extend in order to, because we know when we have 2 different colours together, they must be disambiguated by a line segment. This comes into a 3, so that must be this way round. Now we have a line here, so this 3 is a different polarity to this square, so this square is green. And the loop, oh, done it again, sorry. In fact, I'm just going to go back and undo that. There we go. So that must do that. That forces this position. And again now, we've got to avoid checkerboard. So we can't have these 2 squares being green. These 2 must be purple, and this is green. And I think we've almost solved the puzzle now. We just have to tidy it up, make sure we don't make any bad errors. So that's coming around there. Let's fill in the actual lines like this. You can see coming down here now, this has to come right round the corner in order to make sure it connects to its friends. Very clever design, this, to allow this to happen. This has to come out, otherwise we're going to isolate this area. Now this 2 square, in order to create 2 cells or 2 line segments where we're disconnecting the colours, obviously this square here is going to have to be purple. Now look at this 1 square. This 1 square has 3 friends which are purple. We know on one side it must have a different colour, so this square is going to have to be green. And I hope you're in sort of appreciating as much as I do how weird this puzzle is. It's so different from normal Slitherlink puzzles because actually you're using these colours so much more than one would ever expect. Again, avoiding the checkerboard, this is going to be green. Like that. And we just have to decide how to resolve this final piece now, and this 1 is going to help us do it. This 1 means there's a line segment here, and that means there's not a line segment here. So this must be a friend of the 1, this must be purple, and now how is this green going to connect? It can no longer connect this way, so it's going to have to come this way. And let's finish it off then by filling in those like that. Filling in the loop, and this is the correct answer to the puzzle, obviously with a purple there and a purple there. So I hope you got as much enjoyment out of that as I did. I hope you tried the puzzle first. If there's a positive response to this, then I will do the puzzle from the US Puzzle Championship as well from 2018, which was another example of this sheep and wolves clothing, but this I don't want to make the video too long, so we'll stick there at 20 minutes, and we'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.